Welcome to another edition of Bitcoin Brief with the amazing Tone Vays, the legendary Jimmy Song, and the wonderful Rodolfo. It is Monday, June 1st, and I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I'm living in the apocalypse right now. There's like a virus going on. There's people with masks on the street. People are getting shot. There's helicopters flying above me. There's a curfew. My cell phone's ringing with alerts saying there's a curfew at 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. in New York City. How are you guys doing? Tone.
Yeah, no, it is definitely exciting, and don't mind staying indoors actually, so it's good. Oh, I want to give a shout out to whoever sent me these sneakers. They're really, really cool. But it was a while ago, and I finally opened up the package. So whoever did this, please reach out to me so that I know who you were, because I get a lot of stuff in the mail and then I forget who sent it to me. So these are really cool, and now I'm not ready to wear them yet because I don't go anywhere anymore. But they are making awesome decorations. So that's a shout out.
Nice. Jimmy, any use cases for Bitcoin or, in these crazy times?
Apparently, the price has kind of gone crazy ever since the Trump speech earlier today. I've never actually seen a real world event affect Bitcoin price so much that wasn't directly related to Bitcoin. But it seems like there are going to be some military sent to some of these cities that are experiencing rioting, and for some reason that's causing Bitcoin price to go up. I'm not sure what that's all about. But I can't complain. I love the fact that Bitcoin is over 10K again. I think everyone has been looking forward to this for a long time. The stock to flow model seems to be starting to hold. The red dot started yesterday, I think. So we'll see. But yeah, it's a surreal world. It does feel like we just need to add like zombies or something, and then we'd be all good.
Okay, Rodolfo, anarchy gets Bitcoin really excited these days. How are things where you're at?
It's Canada. It's too cold for people to give a shit about anything. It's like, it's just always peaceful. It's actually like now the summer starts and then the summer is too hot for anybody to give a shit about anything. It's just like the Canadian way. Things are not bad here. Aside from prototyping new things, the production, factory is good. Everything is getting done. Things are getting shipped, and new products are getting made.
What products are you talking about?
Well, we're working on the Block Clock Mini, and we're working on a new product to go alongside Cold Card. It's gonna be fun, but that one's gonna take a while. We launched the seed plates. What else? The ColdPower, and all the fun stuff. But it seems that
ColdPower is on our list for today, so we're gonna dive into that one.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, it seems that any news is good for Bitcoin. There's nothing that's bad for Bitcoin.
Yeah, pandemic, apocalypse.
Yeah,
martial law,
for the apocalypse,
anarchy,
good for buying
martial
lattes.
law. It's good for Bitcoin.
It's good for Bitcoin.
All right, so with that, I'm going to start sharing my screen so we can take a look at this week's stories. First one, we got a response from this Goldman Sachs presentation from last week on the U.S. economic outlook and implications of current policies for inflation, gold, and Bitcoin. So it gave a look at the U.S. economy and a look at what you can invest in or what they would recommend. They did not recommend Bitcoin as an investment. And so we have a response from Galaxy Digital on that presentation by Goldman Sachs, and it's entitled, "What Wall Street Gets Wrong About Bitcoin." And so it's quite lengthy. I'll just start with the misconceptions. Misconception number one: Bitcoin is not investable because it does not generate cash flow. The bottom line, cash flow generation is not the only metric by which society and investors view value. So, Tone, give me your take on this first point here.
Yeah, going through it one by one might take us a little bit of a while, so it'll be quick. We can go through just a few of them. The first two are very similar, and the second
right.
one is not investable because it does not generate earnings through exposure to global economic growth. And then he points out in the bottom line, earnings during the good times should not be the only lens. I think that's lens. Sorry, I can't read. Lens through which investors identify attractive assets to own. He goes through his point by point for like 10 points, and it's very, very good. I really enjoyed this read. I'm actually going to tweet this out right after. The link to this is in the video description, and they do a very good job at countering Goldman Sachs point by point. He points out the correlations right here in his point number 3, that bonds have been even crazier versus the stock market than Bitcoin. And in point number 4, it's not investable because it's because it does not dampen volatility. They point out how the volatility aspect needs to be combined with your potential return. Bitcoin is more volatile, but it's a hell of a lot. It has a hell of a lot of higher probability of making you a return. And you can see it right there. Year to date, Bitcoin is crushing everything. And over the last 3 years, it's really crushing everything else. And the inflation point was really good as well. Bitcoin hasn't had a chance to thrive during inflation times because we haven't had heavy inflation times. So I really, really liked it. I think my one of my favorites, if you scroll down a little bit further, and then I'll end it there, and then I'm sure Jimmy's read the whole thing as well. I mean, the stuff about others are willing to pay for it, I mean, that's pretty straightforward. They clearly point that this was a great example. The complete misunderstanding of forks and altcoins, and they point out that Bcash and BSV and others, they're like clones, but they're worthless compared to the original. And he gives an example saying if someone copied the US dollar, called it CUSD, C probably stands for copy, and then they had as many of their CUS dollars as real US dollars, does that mean they just doubled the supply of US dollars? And the answer is no. So it was good. I mean, they broke down the whole illicit activity, horrible talking point from, the 2012 and 13 during Silk Road. So I mean, I really enjoyed reading this, and it was pretty good.
Jimmy, you had a chance to read it as well. What were your main takeaways from the response? Was it adequate?
Yeah, I thought it was an excellent paper, and it gives a very good overview of why Goldman's talking points from 2014 are completely and utterly wrong. I think the main pattern that I saw in this paper is here's their objection, and you're applying it to Bitcoin, but not any of these other assets that also experience the exact same thing. And so none of these are reasons really to not invest in Bitcoin. And in fact, some of them are just outright fraud, like just completely false. Others are, true to some extent. Bitcoin is volatile, but that volatility doesn't mean that it's not investable. And in fact, it would be very stupid to dismiss it just on that basis. And I think they made a really good point there. I think this is a great paper for, I think, institutional investors that do want to sort of look at it from a more objective standpoint than sort of like the spaghetti of FUD that Goldman put out as a way to sort of dissuade their clients from getting into Bitcoin. As we've seen since their reports come out, I think Bitcoin's gone over like $1,000. So, take that, it's, you follow Goldman's advice, who's usually doing some market manipulation in every way, shape, or in every market to some degree, at the risk of your own peril. So yeah, that was my take on this.
Here, I'll read over the conclusion really quickly. We now live in a world with staggering and unprecedented expansionary fiscal and monetary policy for Wall Street to claim that the US dollar will not be debased and in some cases assign a zero probability to Bitcoin performing well in investment portfolios is nearsighted in our view. History has shown time and time again that there are consequences to such continued policy, and unless concrete steps are taken to rectify expansionary policy, confidence in the currency and sovereign can be lost. Once that confidence is lost, it will be nearly impossible to earn it back. Rodolfo, your thoughts on this report?
Well, this report was very good, very well written. But what's interesting about the Goldman report is that, it's a classic sort of like large fund report where they will make the report match their portfolio, right? They will always justify their choices of investments in their report and show how they are sort of. So when you read the report, it shows, oh look, they're doing the thing that the report says is right. Well, no, they just matched their portfolio. In reality, is that if they had put any meaningful amount of money in Bitcoin, they would have beat their returns by orders of magnitude. So the proof is in the pudding there. There really is not much to say. It's so much so that a lot of guys, from Wall Street on their personal investments have Bitcoin. So, the retail investor, it's always going to be sort of front run by the funds themselves. It's just the way it works.
All right. Do we have any further comments on the Galaxy Digital report?
No. That's all.
We're gonna move on.
Mike Novogratz and his team. I will need to reach out to him. Mike, if you're watching, thanks for coming on the Having stream. I gotta get you on for an interview. Ask you some tough questions for a change.
All right. So the next story we have here is meet the U.S. candidate who's invested in Bitcoin since 2013. We've got the U.S. elections coming up in November. A lot of changes in the air. Cynthia Loomis was the U.S. representative for Wyoming from 2009 to 2017 and is now running for U.S. Senate. A budget hawk and founding member of the Freedom Caucus, she bought Bitcoin in 2013 after a tip from her son-in-law. She's been an advocate ever since. All right, so we've got, all right, so Jimmy, you had a chance to read over this article. What was your take on this new U.S. Senate candidate? Looks like she learned about Bitcoin as most parents do from their kids.
Yeah, indeed. And she's gotten a lot of really great advice from Will Cole, who's with Unchained Capital. If you don't know about him, he's been invested in Bitcoin for quite some time now, and he travels back and forth between Wyoming and Austin, so I know him pretty well. Along with his wife, who's her daughter, she's been getting really good advice about this, and I couldn't be more thrilled at the prospect of having somebody in the U.S. Senate that actually knows something about Bitcoin instead of just sort of talking about it. We know that Warren Davidson is a Bitcoin holder. He's a representative from Ohio, I believe, and he knows what's actually going on, and he very much is on board with what Bitcoin provides and will fight for Bitcoin in many ways. Wyoming's been at the frontier of Bitcoin in large part because of people like her, people like Will Cole and his wife, who are pushing for good legislation and so on. I should also mention Caitlin Long, obviously. All of those people in Wyoming are trying very hard to make it a good place to do business with Bitcoin. And I think that's the direction that we're going to go in, is that there is going to be some regulatory arbitrage opportunities available. And hopefully what Cynthia will bring to the U.S. Senate is this perspective of, hey, this is actually really good for the economy. And it's really good for personal freedom. It's really good for restricting our budgetary impulses to spend. And that in turn will help the rest of the country to recognize Bitcoin for the usefulness that it actually has. And best of luck. I mean, she's running as a Republican in a pretty much Republican state, so I think she's going to get elected. I think it's very hard for Democrats in that particular state. So I'm very excited for her prospects, and I wish her the best of luck.
Tone, what's your sense of how U.S. lawmakers and their understanding of Bitcoin and the legislation they've tried to introduce to regulate and get digital currencies going in U.S. markets?
Well, mostly it's been pretty bad, but as Jimmy pointed out, this is incredibly encouraging because of the advice that she's getting. So if you scroll down to her first answer and you click on her son-in-law, Will Cole, the one that Jimmy was talking about, if you click on him, it will take you to On-Chain Capital. And On-Chain Capital is one of the blogs that we have covered on this show, and Jimmy and I strongly recommend. So if you click on the blog section of On-Chain Capital, please subscribe to their blog. It's very, very good. Parker Lewis, who joined us for the halving stream, he writes on there as well. So their blog is very good, and it's gotten some excellent articles over the last year or two. They haven't really I don't know how long it's been around. I think it's been around for about 2 years or so.
It's been around a little longer than that. And
a little longer than that. I ran across it about 2 years ago for the first time. But it's very, very good, and check it out. And I think we're both speaking. If you scroll up a little bit above the camel, Parker Lewis and I are both speaking at the Value of Bitcoin conference tomorrow. That's going on virtual. I'm sure there'll be links. I don't know. I was supposed to go in for a sound check and like register for it, but I'm speaking. I'll figure out tomorrow. It doesn't really matter. But yeah. So it's all about the advice that these either current politicians or future politicians or regulators. It's all about who they bring in as an advisor. Like, you bring in the wrong advisor, and the next thing you know, the SEC is talking about how Ethereum is sufficiently decentralized. And that's because they probably brought in someone from Consensus instead of someone that could tell them what happened with the DAO and how they just reversed all the transactions. Rodolfo was already laughing, so I'll just probably hand it over to him. So it's all about who their consultants are, because I don't expect anyone that has a very important job and is busy to pay attention to the intricacies of Bitcoin. But if On-Chain Capital is advising them, I'm very, very happy about that. That's the most important part.
Interesting. Rodolfo, you're not from the United States, but you can give us a Canadian perspective. Are you seeing Canadian lawmakers or a good understanding of Bitcoin in the government? Where's that at?
Yeah, well, Andreas showed up. Andreas showed up and talked over with your government before I think he did it with the U.S. government.
Yeah, so Francis was there too in those hearings. And I mean, our government gets it very well. So much so that they made sure to, have regulation ready pretty early. It actually kicks in, I think, this month now that if you're a Bitcoin business that holds Bitcoin for other users, you have to be a money service business license holder now, which is interesting. Bitcoin ultimately is not good for politicians, right? I mean, unless you're a politician that is for less government, Bitcoin is bad news for you. So I don't expect most politicians to be for Bitcoin or to try to make Bitcoin easier for its existence. It's it's a medium to defund government anywhere in the world, really.
Yeah, but it also depends on how much these politicians like money being handed to them under the table, in which case Bitcoin works fairly well.
Well, I mean, in Brazil, I remember a few years ago, a Brazilian politician getting caught with a Bitcoin bribe. I was like, yes, they get it.
Well, also like a lot of these politicians actually own Bitcoin, and in that case, they're going to want to protect their investment. And if their constituents also own Bitcoin, they're going to want to protect their investments too. So, I don't know. In a representative democracy, the incentives get kind of weird, and it's not always in one direction.
Well,
Yeah,
remember,
but-
right? Like politicians are always sort of like, do as I say, don't do as I do, right? So those guys are holding Bitcoin while they're incentivizing the world being burnt down, right? It's a very schizophrenic view of the world.
Yeah, but Jimmy, at the same time, like you have Ripple bribing politicians and regulators left and right. So how do we deal with that disaster?
Well, they're going to get
run
burned.
out of money.
Ripple, I don't know, man. They still have 500 million Ripple to just do whatever they want with.
It's the same
some
as
scams
Ethereum.
take a long time.
Yeah.
I've seen
Well, I'm
Canada
sorry, did I
make
say
some
500?
Sorry, Jimmy. It's exactly like Ethereum, right? It's like those guys have a marketing budget that never ends.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I said 500 million. That's so inaccurate. It's 50 billion.
Yeah. Well, that's the current value. It's not that liquid, so they can't spend that much at any one time.
Yeah, no,
yeah.
they sell a few billion every month onto their bag holders. That's okay. We're not going to get into Ripple. on the show
Wow.
again.
Wow. Is it still that much they're selling and dumping on the market? Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a couple billion, but it's in the 100 million territory. Yeah.
There's
Wow.
some Canadian towns that are accepting Bitcoin for payment of taxes. So
Oh yeah.
Canada
Yeah.
is-
So
making
in Bitcoin, in Canada, cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, really, it's like they're considered just commodity, right? So essentially any municipality that's willing to accept chickens will accept Bitcoin, right? Like it doesn't really matter. It's a shame that it hasn't been sort of set as an actual currency, so that you don't have sales on the taxes on the sale of it. But they don't have sales tax on Bitcoin. It's very weird. It's like it depends on which regulator you ask, they'll consider something else.
Yeah, you know what else I really liked about the Canadian law? I don't know if it's still true or not. That you didn't have to KYC at ATM machines.
Yeah, so our KYC is it's fairly it's straightforward. I mean, like, so I think it's like below $300, there's no KYC whatsoever. Below 3,000, I think you need to have like name and maybe phone number or something, and then and then up to 10,000, you have to have like address. But I think that's it. Like there's nothing else more than that. That's enough to ruin your life when they lose that information to the bad guys. But aside from that,
But at least they don't require like dick pics from you like they do.
No.
in the US.
I don't know, man. It depends on which province you're in.
Yeah. The two cities are
In
Innisfil and
Saskatchewan,
Ontario.
they require a dick pic. No.
Innisfil in Ontario and Richmond Hill, my hometown, accept cryptocurrency payments for taxes. Shout out
Wait,
to-
are you here in Canada?
No, I'm in the apocalypse town of. New
Oh, right.
York.
That's right. You're in New York.
Okay.
Yeah, you do not want to be near any social unrest in New York. It's like an island, and you're stuck there.
We're all in this together. It's a common
Exactly.
refrain. Okay. All right, the next story. We've got maker of Cold Card Bitcoin wallet rolls out an extra strength USB condom. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Do I have one here?
The
Yeah,
Canadian-
that's literally Rodolfo. That's literally Rodolfo.
Oh, that's right.
There.
That's me.
There it is. All right. The comedian Dennis Miller once joked about computer viruses. When you link up to another computer, you're linking up to every computer that computer has ever linked up to. If so, CoinKite maker of the Cold Card hard wallet has invented an extra strength prophylactic for Bitcoin investors. Rodolfo, explain, please.
Love it. So we make the only actually like air gapped hardware wallet in the market that's actually air gapped. And my paranoia level was not happy with like battery packs for USB, because those are Chinese chips on them, and technically you could essentially like put malware in a battery pack. if that wasn't enough, so we wanted to make a dumb battery pack that doesn't have any sort of smart electronics in it. Couldn't find one that I liked, so we're like, yeah, you know what the hell, let's just make one. So we made ColdPower. It's just like this little guy, and you plug this into a 9-volt battery, and we call it USB PPE. It's a tinfoil mode. So what's really cool about this little device is it's cheap little device, but it's a USB condom that doesn't need a power source, like that's like another computer or something else. Because you can actually have data, especially in USB-C. There is data going through the power signal. So not just the data signal, you could actually have data going through the power signal. And you know, you could find some more advanced attackers trying to do some shenanigans there. There's been some attacks on Ledger and Trezor, like through the USB.
So let me get this straight. I know
Yeah.
that 2 of the pins on a USB connection are the ground and the power.
Yeah.
You don't. So those 2 pins don't connect at all using this condom.
Yeah. So they're actually, like, you can see they're hollowed out on the trace. There is just power. But
Okay.
what's really cool is that the power actually is connected to a dumb 9-volt battery, right? So if you want to be really paranoid, you can go buy your battery with cash at the convenience store, and there's nothing there. Again, it's very important to know this, that like there is data, or there could be leak of data from their hardware wallet, not ours but others, through the actual power lines too, not just the data ports.
So the power line doesn't connect at all to the target computer. It's just,
yeah, exactly. On our case,
Okay.
yes, but if you get a normal hardware wallet and you go to a normal device, you can actually have data going through the power lines, not just the data lines, the actual power lines. There's FSK frames going through there. That's how they regulate. That's in USB-C. It's actually a standard for that. USB-A, and it was a little everywhere, but that's how the device tells the charging device how much power to send. And it's not through the data lines, which is like insanely awful and remarkable at the same time.
Okay. And how much does this cost? How much is one of these ColdPowers?
Oh, that's a good question. I can't remember.
You, Jimmy, it's free.
I think it's like $20, maybe.
Okay.
That's
Wow,
cheap.
that's a really extra strength condom then.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how much a condom goes these days for, but it's like $20.
Where did the
Canadian,
inspiration?
yeah, no, $20. What?
Where did the inspiration for this come? You have a origin story, or?
No, it was really like everything we do is out of frustration. Like hardware wallets were shit, so we made one.
Yeah,
like
right
back,
here. It's out.
Yeah.
There's one out. It's on my desk right here. I know it's a little tiny window in the corner, but there's a cold card.
It's like it's so much like the frustration that we always add comedy to our products. Like there's always like funny PCB markings on it, or it's like the open dime says legal tender on it. It's always out of frustration. That's it. It's just like we always find it absurd that the market doesn't have reasonable products for security, and then we just go and make them.
All right. Let's take a look at the next story. Bitmain releases cheaper Bitcoin miner as it loses market share to MicroBT. So quick take, Bitmain has launched Antminer T19, a cheaper version of its more efficient Bitcoin mining machine, Antminer S19. The new model comes as Bitmain has been losing its market share to rival MicroBT. Bitmain recently also released a new firmware for S17 Plus and T17 Plus Antminers, since these models have shown a high failure rate. Jimmy, have you had a look at this article? What are your thoughts on this new Antminer from Bitmain?
Yeah, so the confusing thing to me is that the S19 is $1,785, but the T19 is $1,750. So it's only like a $35 discount. But but the S19 is supposed to get 95 terahashes per second. The T19 gets 84 terahashes per second. So on a on a capital cost basis, this is actually kind of a bad deal. Although I guess there's better power efficiency on the T19. Fact of the matter is, Bitmain has been making devices that are that haven't been up to standard of some of their older models. So back when the HODLs guy used to work at Bitmain, they used to make fantastic products, and they were the market leader for a very good reason. But ever since he left, starting with I think around the S17, S15, or around that era, the S9 was their real, that was absolutely dominant in the 2017 area. They just they've been their products just haven't been as good, and this is fairly obvious because there's a higher failure rate. They've had to do more refunds. We know that they're going through a lot of internal turmoil. Micree and Jihan have been fighting lots of legal battles. There's a lot of drama almost every day, so that can't be good for their actual output. Whereas HODLs, their products are they're a lot more stable, a lot better. They're getting a lot more market share. Bitmain is still sort of riding off of their reputation from 2017 still, and it's kind of interesting that they're having to cut more and more costs, and they're having to provide discounts, and none of this can be very good for them because the amount of capital that they're having to put in. I mean, they don't get me wrong, they made tons of money in 2015, 2016, 2017, even 2018, but a lot of that money has been wasted on initiatives to do AI stuff. They had to cut a lot of people. They were supporting a bunch of open source projects, which they don't do anymore. So, I mean, this looks to me like, a typical restructuring of kind of a bloated company. They're refocusing, trying to do what they, go back to their core competency, which is building miners. But unfortunately, because they were spread so thin, they've kind of gotten bad at it. And I'm sure you know this, Rodolfo, when you focus on too many things as a company, you tend to lose skill in the thing that you used to do best. And that seems to be what's happening with them.
I think that there is one more thing to note to them is that, and I think this is true for pretty much all the Bitcoin mining companies, I think they're starting to reach the limit of their capabilities. I think so like these guys have so much that they can do on silicon before they have to go either beg for patents that they don't have access to, or they're going to have to start knocking on the door of the big boys that can actually do the design of these ASICs to the next level, right? It's actually been quite surprising to me that it's been taking this long for major chip makers that have the right sort of skills and the right patents to come into this space. Because once you have like Intel or whoever, like big, like Microchip or the big guys, they already have, like, this is one of the biggest problems with hardware, is that when you're developing a die for a chip, you're gonna have to license patents. Like there's very little that can be invented there for you to get away around it, unless you're making some illegal unlicensed product in China, which might be some of the cases here. I just don't get why some of these big guys are not coming in yet, because the money is there, right? I mean, you look at the amount of ATI graphic cards that have been sold for mining, right? Imagine if they sort of just put some of their like super high-end skill set and resources towards this. They could like leapfrog the kind of efficiency that we have right now. It's just interesting to watch. I can't wait for them to come in.
Tone, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I'm pretty much with Jimmy. If you scroll down a little bit at the price of the miners, that's the first thing I noticed. And honestly, I think it could be an error in the article that it doesn't make sense for the miner to only be $35 cheaper, but it's earning you like 80 cents less per day. So like in a month, you're gonna almost get your money back here. If you buy the more expensive version. So it's got to be an error in the article. It's got to be at least a few $100 cheaper. It can't just be $35 cheaper.
Jim, Tony, it could be that this is not a real new hardware. This is just an incremental update. Maybe they just, it's just a new production run of the same crap, and they're just calling it new and just selling it.
And they just need more articles written about them because
that's right.
Clearly, Bitmain is going away. I'm also not familiar with, if you scroll up, Christine, to their micro BT. I'm not familiar with that.
That's who produces WhatsMiner. That's the company.
Oh, that's WhatsMiner. Okay, cool. Got it. Because I'm familiar with WhatsMiner. Okay, I didn't realize it was one and the same. All right, that's what I thought it was. But then when you mentioned WhatsMiner, and you didn't say micro BT, I'm like, oh wow, maybe they are different companies.
No, it's kind of like Bitmain and Antminer.
Yeah, that makes total sense then. Yeah, so that's it. We continue to wait for Bitmain to eventually fully die. But until then, hey, let them invest more into Bcash. That seems to have worked out well in the last year and a half.
Rodolfo, I just noticed there's a question around here. What happens if you lose the USB condom?
Well, you get a new one, or you could just plug it anywhere else you want. I mean, listen, people might have unprotected USB connections.
And you have a seed, I guess. You could just transfer.
Yeah.
No,
there's no seed. This is just the condom.
Yeah. So the condom. So you plug your code card via USB cable to the condom.
Can you show us? Actually, I would like to see where the plug goes.
Yeah, we need to stop. We need to stop screen share.
I'll give you guys.
You want me to stop it?
Yeah.
Stop screen share for a sec, so we could watch Rodolfo.
Yeah, and if I'm gonna put Rodolfo on the big screen as well. So if we all mute, then it'll be.
Oh, I'm muted. Mute.
The rest of us are muted, so you can show.
Oh, okay. All right. So there you go. So you have a code card and a ColdPower. See, in a USB cable, a battery. Okay, so I'm gonna turn on here. Oh, and turn it on. So now you have a truly paranoia level air gapped solution here for Bitcoin. You do your signing, and then you take your microSD. Do I have one here on my desk? Probably. Yes, I do. You take your microSD card, you put it in, you sign your transaction. You could be in your Faraday cage tent if you want to. And then you put it in your computer and you broadcast your transaction.
Oh, okay. So I thought it was an actual proper USB condom. I thought it would connect to the ColdPower, and then the ColdPower would have a USB output that would connect.
So we didn't want to trust that either.
But that's what a condom is.
Yes.
It's a barrier in between things. This is more like a fleshlight or something.
Yeah, no, Jimmy, I thought the same thing. Like
Jimmy, you're really invested in this meme economy here.
Yeah, no, they are using it for just straight up power.
Okay. I thought it was something else. Sorry.
Yes. So the idea is, you can't trust a computer with stuff. It's period. It's a dirty device. So just skip it. There's no reason for you to touch it anymore with your Bitcoin.
All right. Want to go to the mempool?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Going back to screen share.
By the way, yesterday transactions were free.
Yeah. And they'll be free again tonight. So if you scroll down just a little bit, so we can see what's going on in the last day or so. You can see that the giant backlog of 1 sat per byte transactions, which has been there for a few weeks now, has essentially cleared overnight. And you can see that it happened last night. I guess around 3 a.m. or 3 p.m. GMT, something like that. And then we saw a slight surge earlier today, but that's all pretty much disappeared. I think we have maybe like 6,000 transactions in the mempool, about 5 megabytes. So even if you have like a 1 sat per byte transaction, it will likely confirm in the next 10 to 12 blocks. So, if you want to save on fees or you want to consolidate transactions or something like that, now is the time to do it, because transactions are incredibly cheap right now, which is kind of surprising because of the price run up that's happened in the last few hours. Normally, this is when a lot more transactions are going in. Right now, if you want to get a transaction in on the next block, it's about 60 sats per byte, something like that. In the next 2 blocks, it's like 15. The next 3 blocks, like 3. So if you're willing to wait, you could totally get them in very cheap. If you want to get it in the next block, it's going to be more expensive, but you'll be okay doing like 10 sats per byte and getting it in the next half hour to an hour. So depending on what your situation is with trading and the price action that's happening, it's entirely up to you what you want to do. But that's essentially the mempool weather at this moment in time.
Yeah, Rodolfo, you have any thoughts on mempool and transaction fees in general?
It's quite interesting. I mean, it always follows the price, right? But the price in terms of like, it's always sort of delayed after the price. It seems like you get a small little wave of people doing transactions after the price has a movement, but it normally takes a couple days because you need sort of like news cycle around it. And then we just never know, right? If Coinbase will ever get their shit together with their UTXO management, that could be part of it. I don't know, man. The pool is the pot is growing a lot, so it's hard to know. And then there is a lot of like liquid and Tether BTC also going between the exchanges now. So a lot of people don't need to do Bitcoin transactions between exchanges to trade anymore. And we might see that reflected in the mempool in the next bull run. We'll see.
I'm going to make mention of a tweet you have down. This is the last time you will be able to buy Bitcoin below 10,000 ever again. Explain to me.
So, yeah, so that's it. That's for sure, 100%. And you can click through that click hole. It's 100% accurate between every single up and down. I've predicted, and then it's been. I use very, very complex mathematics to do my technical analysis, and then you get a correct call on the price.
Excellent.
You do these every day?
Every time the price moves. It's a deep hole there.
We also, if you want to learn more about programming Bitcoin, Jimmy Song has written a whole book for you where you can learn all about programming Bitcoin. Jimmy, thank you so much.
Yeah, and I have the other book, the Little Bitcoin book, which I am holding here. But you can buy this for your no-coiner friends or for pre-coiner friends that are very curious about Bitcoin. I know for myself, there's a lot of people hitting me up from my non-Bitcoin friend crew that are asking about it. So don't be surprised if you need to explain it. This is a good way to learn how to explain Bitcoin to a lot of people.
Excellent. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. And Tone is going to go into his trading analysis.
All right, let's go and take a look. We saved a little bit of time. And here we are. Let me see. I think the price pumped right after This chart should have updated about an hour ago, and it looks like it still hasn't. Looks like it's still giving me the Sunday price. That's unfortunate. But I've been watching this line as the continuous rejection of the price of Bitcoin. But over the last few hours, we have jumped up above that line. You don't see it on that picture, however. You see it on this picture. Here's my minor problem is that we did jump, but we jumped on a week where Bitcoin is kind of set to top. We had a similar situation, though not as similar, and I pointed out the differences to the first week of April. The biggest difference being we were way more consolidated before the breakout on this 9th candle of the run-up. Here, we only consolidated in the last 3 to 4 weeks, and we are now breaking out again. Now, what happened last time was this breakout led to a 4-week consolidation. We are coming off a 4-week consolidation, but we were also in consolidation before this big breakout. So I'm not looking for much higher prices right here. I am looking for Bitcoin to slow down a little bit. But if we stay above this breakout trend line for the next few weeks, Rodolfo might be right. This could be the last time you get to buy Bitcoin below 10,000. At the moment, it's a little too early to just blatantly assume that. This was certainly a breakout. If we go to the daily chart, been watching this triangle, really wanted to see us pull back one more time towards this moving average, pull back down to 9 before an eventual breakout, sometime in June. But breakout we did. And now let's see. Now the daily is also coming into its top. So the counts are suggesting a top in about 3 days. So this candle just started a few hours ago. So then there could be a top coming in. If today is Monday, we could see a top on Wednesday. Now, I have no idea how high it's going to go. At the moment, I do think that Bitcoin has a chance to go up a little bit higher. We are now straight in this double top category with the last swing high. This is very, very bullish for the second half of the year. So I could admit that I was wrong in my January 3rd article that Bitcoin would spend the majority of the year between 6,000 and 10,000. If we break above the prior swing high, I will have to, change my outlook for the rest of the year. As of right now, only a few hours into the breakout, I'm not going to yet walk away from that viewpoint. We need to be able to hold 10,000. We need to be able to hold it. Right now, this is still the beginning of the week. And by the end of the week, we could be back below this trend line. I can no longer fudge this trend line. You want to be as most conservative as possible, which means I've been adjusting this trend line to be as high as possible. I don't really have any more room to do that. So this is it. So now it's up to this week's candle to be able to close above the trend line. Now, if it closes all the way at 15,000, then, and you're not in Bitcoin, well, then it kind of sucks to be you, because like I've been saying for the last 4 months, and probably for my entire life on YouTube, that the best time to buy Bitcoin for the long term was yesterday. It was always yesterday. That's the best time to buy Bitcoin if you're going to be a hodler. If you're going to try and time the market, I was becoming very bullish the day after this low. And that's pretty much, for me, this is when the bull market starts. We have gone up a little too far and a little too fast, but that doesn't mean we can't go higher and we can't go faster. So if you're a Bitcoiner, you should have some Bitcoin. I have not went into GBTC yet. I am still waiting for a clean pullback to do that, but I am also haven't sold any of my HODL in a while and don't plan to the rest of the year and hopefully the rest of next year as well. So I do think Bitcoin is going to be going higher, but we have to I still trust TA. It's unfortunate that we're breaking out on a 9 instead of breaking out on, say, a 2. If this was a breakout on a 2, I would be screaming moon, moon, moon right now. But unfortunately, the TA that I follow is making me a little more cautious than I otherwise would in different parts of the counts. That's my view on Bitcoin. Here's the 4-hour chart. The 4-hour chart broke out very nicely. The 4-hour chart still has a little bit of room to the upside, but I don't know what caused it. It could have been the Trump speech, though I doubt it. This happened off hours. Wall Street clearly didn't move it based on how late it happened. GBTC premium is not, well, actually it's hard to judge it at this hour because one of these lines adjusts and the other one doesn't. Just a quick peek at gold. Gold is still doing well, not as well as silver, which baffles me a little bit. Oil is still rising. I mean, I have to be back to being bullish oil. Really thought we would pull back. We started to pull back, but the market hasn't turned yet. The market is turning. So this morning when I was doing a stream and I drew this green line, just as this candle was right under this green line, and I said, hey, the break of this green line should send it way higher. That's actually exactly what happened. At the moment, you have the opposite situation. And once again, we're going to close this podcast in about 5 minutes. And now you almost have to color this red because now we're in reverse. It's the reverse situation of what we just saw to the upside during market trading hours. Right now, and technically you already broke it. So the break of prior swing low, especially on a 3, and right here we were doing it on a 4, this should send the stock market lower. It's not always going to work, but I will take this bet most of the time. And if I had taken this bet during trading hours, I would have made money on that trade. I am still short the S&P 500. I believe we have topped. I've been talking about a top since Wednesday. This was the Wednesday candle. This was the Thursday candle. Friday, we had the 9. And today we had the C13. So I am looking for a top in the market right here. I don't think these protests and now curfews in cities like New York and I think LA maybe and DC, I think the curfew is like what, 3 p.m. or something? Like when are they not allowed to go outside anymore?
Around
Jimmy,
8 p.m.
Yeah, I mean, like people are still like, like it's like quarantine, non-quarantine. It's like it makes no difference. It's like nobody's going back to work on Monday, so like who cares? It's like,
no, it's really crazy. And
yeah, but we're getting all these bad earnings, this really bad economic data, but we're still seeing the markets go up. I mean, I don't understand it.
Look at DraftKings. Like sports aren't even back, and look at the price stock of DraftKings. Jimmy,
people love betting when nothing's going on.
Wow, that's
no, but they
crazy.
have nothing to bet on.
Well, the UFC maybe.
Not really.
They had a couple of things.
No, this is fantasy sports.
Can you zoom out on that? Can I see the year?
How low did it go?
No. Okay, wait. Let me, guys. Let me explain. So this, so DraftKings, instead of going IPO, they merged with another company that was already trading. So assume this jump is the IPO of DraftKings.
Yeah, but it wasn't priced in. So then the next jump after that is successful merger.
Well, right. So this is the this is like the inside. This is like the inside buying.
Yeah.
And then this is where the news becomes public.
That's right.
Right. So this was just a weird way to go IPO. You basically
this is the reverse merger strategy.
Yeah.
It's just a weird way to go IPO. Instead of going IPO, they merged with a company that was publicly traded at like 1 penny.
Yeah, we do that a lot in the TSX in Toronto is essentially that. It's all reverse IPOs.
Yeah, it's an RTO, is it? A reverse triangular.
I'm told by certain short traders that I know that this is that's like a mark of a scam, actually.
Oh,
Yeah, that's like the
100%.
backdoor method of raising
Totally.
money.
Yeah.
Not just that. You incur a lot of amazing debt to offset your earnings after too. But the investors only care about the earnings, not the debt you're incurring. So like it's like a double awesome. It's essentially a scam.
Yeah. That's what I've heard, and those are prime candidates for shorting.
Yep.
All right. You guys have any questions for me? Price wise, Rodolfo, Jimmy.
Yeah. So if you could go back to the weekly on on Bitcoin, of course. Okay. So we are seeing this breakout. Like it's back to the levels before it all started dropping. I guess like May 1st or something. And you're seeing that as the double top. So would it be fair to say that the upside is the length of that drop, or is it like what's the upside there if we break past this double top?
Unfortunately, the upside from here is not the length of the drop. It doesn't really count in this case. Now, if we were to pull back to the $7,000 area and come back to 10,000, this would form an inverse head and shoulders, in which case the target would be the length of the drop. As of right now, this breakout actually, to me, doesn't have a target, but we have formed a double top with the February high, and there is sufficient distance between them. Between February and June is sufficient distance, which means that all-time highs are potentially not far away, because the next swing high is very close at 14,000, and the next swing high is very close at 20,000. I mean, the chances of us breaking 14,000 a year ago were incredibly small. We never had any critical pullbacks, and it was too soon. Now, after this COVID crash, we are in a sufficient position. I mean, it's unfortunate that my friends ended up getting their, positions blown up with this, but this is how markets bottom traditionally. And therefore, I would have been, completely dumbfounded if we would have went to 20,000 and beyond in June or July last year. If it happens at the end of this summer, I wouldn't be surprised I won't be surprised at all. I think it's due for a pullback. I think we need to pull back and retest this 200 week moving average one more time, but it doesn't mean that we can't do it from 40,000. So if we go to 40,000 later this year because of like crazier news between COVID and civil unrest, and Bitcoin does bubble up into 40,000, it'll be unfortunate. There'll be another, 75, 80% correction, and we will hit this 200 week one more time, but it will probably be in the $10,000 range. So if we fall from 40,000 to 10,000, there's your 75% correction, and we back test the 200 week, but we hold the 10,000, and Rodolfo's right.
And that one candle that's about October of last year, would you call this a triple top, or is no a little further around October of last year?
This one.
Yeah. I mean, because they're right around the same level.
Not really. I wouldn't call it that, because this is literally just one crazy candle. And to me, like one crazy candle, I mean, look, this is also a crazy candle right here, but at least this candle is happening in context of an upswing. This is like one crazy up candle. This was actually like a 9 buy, and it just, everyone went short and they just got liquidated, and there was a short squeeze. Like, this top is more of an anomaly to me, but this top is a legit top. So I don't consider anything inside this candle to be critical to the future. I consider this candle to just be, anyone over leveraged just lost his money. A few people got lucky, but I would say 90% of traders on this week got totally screwed. And I don't consider that in the long scheme of things.
All right, great. I think
All
we
right.
should end it there, guys. Thank you so much, Rodolfo, CEO of CoinKite, for your insights, as well as Jimmy Song, author of Programming Bitcoin and former programmer of Bitcoin Core, and Tone Vays, the Bitcoin educator, trader extraordinaire, and former quant at Bear Stearns. And I'm Christine, a New York-based journalist. Thank you guys for joining us. Stay safe. If you've got a curfew, stay home and don't get shot.
Fiat Delenda S, guys. This song's done.
Bye, guys.